Dr. Thor here. Get ready for gnosis, meaning truth. Well, as I said, with my journey into watching on YouTube, particularly people who are using higher forms of energy, a lot of them that like to do this because basically they have a lot of time because they're kind of poor, low level, ignorant people. Um, to use energy to control people. And there are hundreds of videos of martial artists from all the systems, including the Russian system as well, who claim they can use all this stuff to manipulate people physically. Now, this is true, it can happen, but to what extent and how effective is it? Anybody that doesn't understand the working of the human body and how there's an energy flow there is kind of silly. And as I've mentioned in some of my other videos, I can turn you into as weak as a kitten by using a one-dimensional sigil that I place on your body. I don't have to touch it. You hold it against your body, put your arm out as you would do in any kind of muscle testing, and you will be unable to keep that arm up, regardless of whether you're super physically fit, whether you're 10 pounds or 500 pounds, you will not be able to just by a actual sigil that is placed on your body. This is mind blowing, and I've done this for over 35 years, and I can do it any place, anytime, anywhere. You don't need special, and you don't have to be tall or short or big. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to function. So this is mind blowing, which is why most of my work has shifted over to using sigils and images because these are very powerful and proven to be time and time again. It's 100% success rate using this particular sigil. So that is what's called science. Repetitive results from the same thing. And by the way, most people can do this, if not everybody. So, I mean, there is something to all this. The problem is you're dealing with the underbelly of society, otherwise known as martial artists. These are really scum level, a lot of them because they're poor and they can't make money, particularly a group that is in Oregon in particular. In Oregon, there is a group of martial artists who are basically all criminals. And they are nasty little criminals. They can't make money. They do all sorts of things. So this is very typical of them. And let's not underestimate the fact these criminal people, particularly the little group in Oregon, certainly have done their martial arts training and are efficient martial artists. To some extent, you could say they're high level. We just don't know how high level they are or anything to go with it, but they're involved with a lot of bad criminal activities. And I knew one of these personally who was completely involved with criminal activity. So all of this is very typical of martial artists. Now, so people are really unaware of what's going on there. So I do recommend, and I'm going to give you the pros and cons of McDojolife, who I've got into some minor discussions with, at least on YouTube. None of these people will ever have the guts to interview me or talk to me personally because they're just too low level. But the one thing good this guy does, and like everything else in life, there are problems with the whole system ultimately, but there's always little parts that maybe be valuable. Now, this guy, McDojolife, does showcases, which he goes on the internet, finds out where there are legal cases against dojos and people involved with them, particularly pedophilia. But there are a lot of other crimes that these people do that are involved in it. These are not people that are going into martial arts for some Hollywood version of something with some high level of morality, just like ninjas were nothing more than murderers. What do you think they were? Oh, a high spiritual, they had all these powers. Well, this is all nonsense, of course. Basically, they were murderers and they were paid to be murderers. And that's the way they are. Just like all professional murderers, meaning military people, are all murderers. That's all they are. They're psychotic murderers that kill for governments, not for any ideals. You talk to any professional military man, these special forces types, and they don't talk about God and country. It's their mission in killing people, and they don't care. They would kill their neighbors as much as they would kill any so-called adversary of the United States. They don't really give a damn. That's what they are. And they don't have a problem with killing people. And they shouldn't. That's their job. That's like being a doctor and you don't like the sight of blood. So it is a really problem there. So we do have to understand all this as we do the things involved in the process of life here. But you have to take care of yourself and find out what's going on. So McDojo does report on these people who are pedophiles and everything else, and there is just thousands of them. And of course, I don't know how many martial arts schools there are, but there is no licensing involved in martial arts. You don't have to prove anything or anything else. I'm not sure there should be. I mean, you should prove it by your business, but you can trick a lot of people. And people have been tricked also. And are they teaching anything of value? I find all martial arts were a waste of time, regardless of the tradition. And if you stayed there long enough, I guess you could learn things jumping around in stupid little outfits in your bare feet. Because of course that's where you're going to be. You know, you're going to be attacked sometime. You're going to have a stupid outfit on, and you're going to be in your bare feet. Yeah, because that's better. Instead of which is even martially nonsense. If you have a good shoe on and you kick somebody, you're going to get more results than kicking them with a bare foot. And the bottom line is that getting into a mano-a-mano physical punch-to-punch contact is absurd, and there's a lot of things going against you, including the fact that most likely you're going to be jumped by numerous other ones. But there are problems with size and where you're at. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're whatever. It's ridiculous to do that. A gun doesn't talk back. It's not worried about how tired it is. It's not worried about the lighting, what's going on. It does its job. And that's why you need guns, especially where it's legal, and particularly in the United States, where you can do that. But there are lots of other weapons you can carry, and let the weapon speak for you, because that's why people have weapons. You know, people are under the impressions because, Bruce Lee said, well, I have a whole body of weapons. If he pulls a knife on me, he has one. Yeah, and that one weapon will stab the hell out of you and you'll die on the ground clucking like a chicken, boy. So it's ridiculous. So the bottom line is people have weapons because of the fatal or the ability to kill you quickly. So the whole idea is that's why people do it. It doesn't slow you down if you know how to use a weapon. But, you know, and that's another thing you see on these very misrepresentative YouTube videos. So he talks about this, which you have to give him credit for, the fact he's exposing this underbelly of dirty martial artists that are out there. But, of course, every industry has it. I wouldn't trust anybody in any industry. Most likely they want to steal from you, and if they can, they will steal from you and hurt you because they're kind of sick mothers. So you run into all these things out there that you have. So he's doing some good work in that area, and I think a lot of people may just think that, oh, he's in martial arts because he's like David Carradine in Kung Fu. He's seeking a higher path. Oh, well, this is a complete and total nonsense. These are losers that go into martial arts. There's no money in it. It's very difficult to make a lot of money. It's very difficult to keep students from coming. This is work. This is tiring, unfulfilling work, punching, stumping, doing katas, etc. So the whole idea is, and again, to learn martial arts is very difficult, unlike learning how to use a gun. And the bottom line is you got to really have a partner. It's very difficult to learn any martial art on your own. So you have to have somebody you can work with, and that's another reason why you may have to go to a dojo, like the great moralistic Japanese in general, who mass murdered over 30 million people, or really it's close to 100 million people in World War II, and where the 80,000 civilians they butchered in Nanking and took pictures of it and made them into postcards, and they sent them home to their loving Japanese. You know, in between murdering dolphins and whales and screwing rubber dolls that look like children, you know, the great Japanese and Asian cultures. So we have to understand that. So, and certainly these are not the people that do it. You know, most people who are running dojos now, I frankly doubt are even Orientals, if that even means anything. So the whole idea is that you have all these problems of these kind of the dirty, low-level reality that martial arts are. plain and simple, and the people that are into them. And again, I haven't really found any good martial arts people. I've very difficultly found good people in anything. As I've mentioned, my industry, which is scalar radionics, is all ran by criminals who are Satanists on top of it. So, but a martial artist wouldn't be smart enough to be a Satanist. It'd be too much book work. So there would be a problem there. So you really have to be cognizant of that and really know what's going on. And how do you do that? Well, it's very difficult. How are you going to do that? So, particularly if you have a female that you're bringing to this school, are they going to be abused there? What is going on? But of course, in this day and age, it don't really matter what sex you are. There's all sorts of things going on. And again, these are not people on some higher path, regardless of whom they are. So in Los Angeles, which you could say had a larger Asian community, and you could say more of a hippy-dippy community, I couldn't find a single martial arts school that wasn't run like a military institution. And they certainly had no backgrounds of philosophy. And of course, that's what everybody started looking for after the Kung Fu TV series. It doesn't exist, people, and they're not going to teach it to Westerners. So, in general, Chinese in particular are very racist people. They don't like nor want to teach Westerners their stuff. And all you have to do is read the history of Bruce Lee, who was harassed because he was not 100% Chinese. And then he had the gall to teach martial arts to West. So, and I won't go over that. I've talked about that in other places, but it is, again, it is known history. Nothing that I speak of is in any way my personal opinion. These are all facts that are out there. So the problem with McDojo is that while he does some good services in that, he has no idea whatsoever of how to research anything. And he seems to be very gun-oriented, most likely because he doesn't believe anything he does martial arts-wise has any efficiency. And most likely he's probably a little bit scared. He was persecuted as a child because of a birth defect. And he's not too concerned with punching. He wants to make sure he has lots of guns. And of course, as we know, martial arts really is inferior. You can't swat a bullet with a karate chop. So regardless of what they tell you. So it's not going to be able to do that. Guns are very important. And that's one reason why if you see any martial artists, and even the public ones, that don't really know much about guns, well, then you have to wonder, because you're not going to stop that. I don't care how great you are. And of course, you see this nonsense on YouTube where people get guns and press it to your head. Who does that? You're not going to get into close to somebody who can grab you. It doesn't even make sense. You stand 6 feet away, but you could stand 20 feet away if you wanted to with a gun. How are they going to get to you? They're going to move that fast? Bruce Lee will fly through the sky and jump and grab your throat 20 feet away. No, what's going to happen is that bullet's going to grab Bruce Lee right in his chest and slam him to the ground, dead. And that goes for any martial artist, because that's the reality of the world we have. And guns, particularly in the United States, are everywhere. It's amazing we don't have more shooting. So don't believe that these things are going to protect you. To think you're going to fight somebody is ridiculous. Knowing how to do it, how to protect yourself, how to get out of difficult situations is all something that's interesting. But I've always amazed, and Hollywood, everybody now is taking martial arts, whether they're physicists or Hollywood people, but you never hear about it. Amazing me with the big sexual scandals of the past that people had, that these women were intimidated and somebody is taking his head and jamming it in your crotch. None of them seem to have any. They can't even protest. They're weak little females that just want to be victimized, and it's as simple as that. It's amazing how, these people who wanted to do that you didn't grab their ears, rip them off, or stick your fingers in their eyes. That don't take martial art training. But that does take a little consciousness. And apparently all these actresses are little weasels. And I wonder how many of them actually had some martial arts training. And remember, martial arts training doesn't make you hardly anything except give you a little bit of maybe dangerous competence. There was a famous actor, Don Stroud, who was a Hawaiian guy, a big guy, grew up in Hawaii at low-income levels, and was kind of a street guy who learned how to use a particular method of Hawaiian martial arts. Did a lot of work in the 70s on shows like Ironside, etc. You can, and I believe he's still alive. But he was filming in New York City, and being a guy that was kind of big and tough, and somebody was getting mugged. So he did what people should do, but what he didn't understand, he's in a society where when you do something good, you do it alone. Remember, nobody is going to help you. So he went over to help this person being mugged, and I believe there was three of them, and they beat him up. They cut his face up horribly, and basically his career was over, even though the cosmetic surgery made him look pretty good, and you can look him up today. But he was a trained Hawaiian martial artist and a big guy on top of it, and it did nothing for him. And of course, nobody helped him. So this is the reality of life. So don't think that this is going to do. Now, if he had a gun and went over there, I think things would be quite different. He certainly would not have gotten his face cut up in the process. But of course, in New York City, you probably at that time in particular, and probably still today, of course, the only people that have guns are the criminals. The same old story. So don't think all that stuff is good. And of course, these kind of things aren't talked about. And of course, as I said, McDojo is very much into guns. That's what he's all about. And he goes to gun shows. I just saw a recent video of his, and he talked about making a custom gun. It's nice to have that kind of money and being able to toy. But the bottom line is that he should be emphasizing how important having guns are over being a martial arts or dojo school consultant, which he claims he is. Now, regardless of all that stuff that this person does, he's a very closed-minded person, and he doesn't know how to do any research whatsoever. So that's why you're with, and this, of course, is not just in particular to him. He believes that you can understand the taste, the feel, and the quality of a restaurant by looking at the pictures on the menu. Oh, that looks good. It must be delicious. Look at the picture. There's no need to test it. Why do we even have to taste it? That's good. This is how he relates to life in general. And there are many people on YouTube in general now that like to play these martial art films that seem to get distributed around the world and criticize the people doing energy work. And of course, gee, what a surprise. You mean there's frauds in that? You mean like poison medications you get? Doctors that kill you on the operating table? And all the other things that go with it? All your rotten, corrupt cops that are working with, you mean life ain't posies and marshmallows? So the whole idea is it's a little bit ridiculous here. So these people, without knowing anything, because it looks, and just because it doesn't look, what does looking real look like when it comes to something you don't even know? So for you to describe what would happen in an energy conflict and say that this is wrong, well, how do you know? Oh, it looks funny. Oh, if it looked like the Matrix, then you'd say, oh, it's obviously Matrix type stuff. It's all done in, fake. It's all stage, special effects. So if it looks good, it's fake. If it doesn't look good, it's fake as well. So to criticize these people, especially as trying to say that you're an authority to something without personally checking out. Now, there's not a single video on his channel that shows him demonstrating personally any kind of techniques, except for most of them. He had the nerve to tell me to go to a playlist which had him testing stuff, which really wasn't testing at all. It was really testing mostly holds and stuff and techniques. And you can go around in circles of what's the best techniques that particular martial art talks about. And that's the other problem. Is one technique better than the other? It depends on your size, your training, your age, your strength, and so forth. So those kind of testings are worthless as well. It gets to be what's the best martial arts in general. And what is the best martial arts? It's the guy who wins. But what did he fight against a bozo? Did he fight against skilled or whatever? And this is the problem with people like Bruce Lee, is the fact that you have to judge him about fighting other professionals of his level. You can't, and since he didn't do much of this, it's hard to say how he would be in actual combat. But let's make it 100% clear: this guy was a genius martial artist and certainly was very skilled. So let's not think of it. And certainly he could take out pretty much 98% of the population, but could he take out a professional fighter like Chuck Norris? Well, I doubt it. Because regular fighting is different than technique fighting, which he was a master at. He looked good, he was an actor, etc. And the point is certainly he could walk his talk, but we have to also understand that when you get down to a mano and it gets down to muscles and bigger guys, all of this stuff counts. When you stand at an exhibition, it's quite different. But the whole idea is we have to understand that. But the point is this guy has not tested any of these people directly. And that's what happened. These people who make these films, we have to get somebody, and assuming he has some pretty good money, he has a big channel, he must be making excellent money per month, he should be going around the country with people that make these films, or even the world, and saying, look, let's test this. It's fascinating. And the point is that he's a very low-level person. He's pretty much your typical unamazing, dumb bunker type that thinks everything that isn't meat and potatoes doesn't taste good. And he wants to judge everybody by the picture on the menu. This is a low-level typical occultist. They're not very bright, they haven't done much, and certainly they haven't done any kind of serious research. So if you want to prove or disprove somebody, take your camera equipment and go there and have them demonstrate on you personally. Because that's the only way I'm going to believe this stuff. And I've done some of this with chi masters in general. And I've seen some fascinating things and some pretty much garbage. And there's a great difference in them. And a lot of times chi masters, particularly in non-martial arts realms, or even within these realms, well, they don't necessarily want to show their power. Powerful people just don't demonstrate it willy-nilly. And if they know that you have a personal power or a type of person who knows what's going on, oftentimes they will not work with you. Now, if you go in there very negative of you're just a con artist, you're this or that, well, that's not the proper way to do research. Research has to be done in a very proper manner. You got to know what you're doing, and you should be working with the person you're testing as much as you possibly can. What do you need? How can we make this work for you? Your goal is to make this person, is to assist them, I should say, to achieve what they state they can do, and you want to help them to do that as much as you possibly can without rigging it. Further with him, he likes to criticize people. Now, I understand as a martial artist, if you want to critique other people's moves, does this look like a good technique or not? And there does seem to be a lot of ridiculous martial arts moves out there. And remember, the best martial arts move you can learn, listen, boys and girls, get a gun with lots of rounds in it, baby. Like a 20-round magazine. So, and make sure you get a real gun, like a 45 instead of a pussy 9mm that the goofballs in Europe carry. The little gay people that are over there. So the whole idea is that that's what you need. And of course, he doesn't stress that. He wants to talk about, well, this is an interesting tech, this is bad, that's not bad. And it certainly does look a lot of these techniques are bad, but it depends on the situation, what's going on, etc. And I frankly doubt that most of these people teaching anybody have really ever been in a fight. They've learned from one instructor after another. They've added their techniques to it, and particularly a lot of the females out there who seem to have learned something in between applying lipstick that really aren't in the real world. But we could spend hours talking about that in general. And of course, if you want to critique that stuff, well, that's up to you based on your knowledge, whatever that means. What is the best martial arts? It's the guy who wins again. So the whole idea is we just don't know what that is. And most of your martial artist people and the people that train this never been in real fights. They don't know what's going on. And they're just a bunch of armchair idiots. And I've ran into a lot of people who thought they were martial arts specialists, and then they talk complete nonsense. I ended up telling one guy, I said, have you ever been in a fight? And I don't think this person ever was, because there's lots of variables, even if you know something. The size of your opponent is critical. And this is where women have problems, because women are kind of like little rag dolls. And if you're a big 200-pound, 6-foot guy, you can take your average woman and hold her over your head and spin her around like a trapeze artist. This is a problem. What are you going to do about that? And of course, little guys of low weight like Bruce Lee, well, of course, you got to move really fast. You'll notice when he fought any large opponents, he ran around like a guy on fire because you never want to get caught. Well, is that practical or is that going to happen? Well, the point is that in the real world, if that's what you're talking about. Now, I don't think martial arts should be a form of physical fitness. It should be something that you practice as an important area of your life. So the whole idea is that we have to fully understand that. And people that are professional soldiers are sociopathic murderers. So you have to understand they will murder you. They don't care who you are. And of course, they have no allegiance to any countries because they're really, Americans don't have allegiance to America. They have allegiance to whatever it is they're involved with, usually money and corruption. So the whole idea is that people have to understand that. So when you look at people, and people love to criticize others, and particularly these energy guys, which, as I said, their stuff looks ridiculous, and particularly Dillman, George Dillman, who has been a professional martial artist for many, many years, and has practiced with a lot of people. He's pushed himself out there. Well, my impression of Dillman is he's kind of a little dork. He's kind of a little ignorant, typical low-level, ignorant martial art guy with a low mentality and low education, the same old story. And of course, he wants to do like everybody else wants to do. He wants to make lots of money. And what are you going to do that with teaching people your form of martial arts? I don't think so. There's lots of ways. You're going to learn the martial art generally that's available in your neighborhood, because what are you supposed to do? Fly to Tokyo to learn Jiu-Jitsu from Toto? It's hard to get those guys. Usually out butchering dolphins or eating whale meat. But the whole idea is that the reality out there is that's what you're going to learn. And to a large extent, all martial arts are the same, especially at basic levels. Past that has to do with a whole bunch of things. It gets down to guns. What's the best gun for you? Well, to start off with, you get a gun you can handle properly, etc. When you advance, you figure out what is better. But all of the things that go on are things that we have to fully understand the reality that's going on there. So George Dillman is a guy who is serious, but doesn't know how to express himself well, doesn't talk well, and endlessly babbles stuff that's unimportant to sound like he's a teacher, which he has to do to fill up classes. So what he's done in his life is that he hasn't worked on how to explain things better. He's not sitting down thinking and evolving. He's babbling nonsense. So when a news team went over to Dillman to test his non-touch knockdowns, of course, and I don't think he did it. He, like most of them do, they have one of their instructors go up there, went and did and failed right in front of TV cameras, making him and his entire dodo look like garbage. Instead of doing what he should have, saying, hey, this stuff works a lot of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. And of course, that's the mystery of it all. But most people don't want to talk like that. So he came up with a whole bunch of excuses and talked about the position of your toes and your tongue and other things. And of course, to a large extent, of course, this is true because you're short-circuiting the energy that is going through you. But it's an excuse. You either can do it or not do it. Then he came back and said the guy was too small. It only works on big people. Oh, it only works on big people on Sundays at noon when there's a full moon and the temperature is 86 degrees. But yeah, set that up and I'll prove to you that it works. Well, the point is that's exactly what you want to do. So you go to a guy like him and say, what does it take for you to make this work and giving you all the best advantages without rigging it? What's the point of rigging it? This is not a movie. There's no benefit in that. So if Dillman states that he needs a 6-foot guy that is, bigger pressure points work better, this is what he can. This guy just keeps digging his hole deeper. And of course, this has nothing to do with energy whatsoever. The size of your opponent has nothing to do with the energy flowing through them. So the whole idea is, it has to be bigger guys. They have to do this. And then you hear the same thing. Who's a non-believer? What do you do with your opponent? You believe I'm better than you? Well, we better start that way. So I'm not going to fight unless you understand you're going to lose. This is ridiculous. So Dillman is his worst enemy, and rightfully so. But the bottom line is that I would not be on the tirade that Mr. McDojo is doing without testing Dillman personally. You feel that you have done the proper research by not going there and testing yourself. You know, this guy is like 85 now. This would be a good time to test him before he dies. But to look at a film like that, of course, this was a test done by ignorant people, which is basically news people. What do they know? They know absolutely nothing. They have no background in any of this stuff, but they went there and tested him, and he failed horribly, which usually happens with most people and most products. It's really funny when you test free energy products, or you test some unusual psychic powered machines, that all the people that invent these things tend to fail when they're put under tests, if they are real tests and everything else. So we have to be careful that they're real tests done by real people. But you don't want to go in there with a hostile attitude like McDojo does. He is coming from the unamazing Randy school, who is a complete and total fraud and deviant. So the whole idea is that if you go in there hostile, nobody's going to want to deal with you, and that's not proof. You're not there to make them fail. You're there to assist them to do everything possible to prove what they're doing is correct, without rigging it. That's how you got to go in there, and that's how you talk to people. That's proper research, plain and simple. So if someone needs to prove what they're doing, a special setup, you then make sure they have that. So you give them every opportunity to prove what they're doing. You can always go back and say, well, it's kind of silly because you're not going to able to do this on Saturday at 12 noon when you have to do it. But in general, this is the kind of actual reality that you have to do. So you have to set up everything properly. You have to do this in a proper manner, and you have to know what real research is all about. And McDojo knows nothing. He's prejudiced. He's basically like most martial arts. He's a nasty little guy who wants to push his attitudes out there. And of course, he knows the best grappling, the best moves, the best everything. Well, you know, martial arts is very subjective, and certainly there, as I've mentioned, seems to be a lot of joke moves done by a lot of people who I don't think have ever punched anybody in their life. And certainly this should be something that's discussed. And if you are a martial artist, you have a right to say, well, this is kind of silly. And I found out in most moves, this is not going to work. And of course, these are physical things. And of course, you have to try this stuff. And he's done a little bit of that, but it's also a little ridiculous. When someone makes a claim, you have to go to the person making the claim and have them demonstrate it. You cannot demonstrate it yourself or bring someone else in. That's bad research, which of course this person is very good at doing bad research. It's nonsense. You have to go to Dillman, find out what he can do to you personally, film it, and go from there. But if you go in there like the deviant, unamazing Randy, nobody's going to want to work with him. And of course, there's other people with many, many systems. So we have to prove this. I mean, this is important research. Are these systems claiming what they're doing have any kind of validity? I think this is very important if you're a martial artist or anybody else dealing with energies such as this. And you're not going to do that by the low-level mentality that McDojo has. This guy has absolutely no idea what he's doing. He has no kind of scientific engineering mind whatsoever. And I think he's well aware of that with his fascination and almost obsession, which seems to be with having guns, because he has no faith in martial arts, and rightfully so, because he's going to be fighting multiple opponents. And I frankly doubt that he can do much of anything or any of these people involved in it, period. And they don't have the attitude of seeking truth. What they have he wants to prove his point, and he wants to prove in his very pitiful understanding of life and energies and what's really happening, and knowing nothing. You know, he's the kind of guy that goes to school and believes everything that their bogus teacher tells them. So it's the same old story that we run into in the society, and certainly he is in no way any better than anyone else. He's worse. But again, it's nice that he is out there exposing this kind of crud level of scum who are your average dojo owners. Now, I don't know what percentage of these are, but you got to remember, for every dojo that is reported doing something illegal, perverse, or pedophilia activity going on, there are hundreds that are getting away with it, and they're doing it for years. And as I said, the martial arts industry is a terrible place uh, that allows, because there's no regulation, you just get a business permit, you slap a sign on your, basically, you don't even have to invest in it. What's in there? A floor? When you put some padding down there, you're in business, and whatever your qualifications are, made up or real, you're in business. And I'm not sure how you can get around with that. I'm not a big fan of licensing, but the bottom line is this is where a huge amount of pedophiles go into, because they're able to get access in a very trusting manner. And you would think you would give more trust to a martial art person, because after all, Grasshopper, you come from wisdom and you will teach me the way, right? Yeah, that's like trusting your police officers and your teachers. And there's a really problem, particularly with female teachers, who seem to be humping all their 13-year-old students for some bizarre reason. Because we know women can't get sex, so they have to hump a 13-year-old. So these are the things that are going on all the time out there that we have to be on constant guard of. And this is one thing that McDojo has brought to the public, which I don't see too many other people doing, so he has to be applauded for that. But the bottom line is that he really doesn't get anything else, and there's no way that he can test anything, particularly of an energetic fashion, particularly since he isn't testing the people that he is criticizing by watching them on a video. We don't know what this looks like. He's never done anything energetically. He has no idea of what's based in biophysical empowerments, often called psychic. He has he has nothing of that. He's a very ignorant, low-level, common person, probably with no educational background whatsoever, if that means anything. But you have to be educated in a field. Having a degree from Harvard and then you say what Qigong means is ridiculous, because you're not trained by that. So you have to have education from particular places that have a value. So the whole idea is these are the type of things that we have to understand here. So everybody is always buyer beware, but you have to be very careful. If you think you're going to, even as an adult, that you're going to go into some martial arts school and you're going to be a kick-ass person, and you think you're going to be able to handle situations, you're not. But make sure you're wearing your gi, especially when you go in bad neighborhoods. And make sure you don't wear shoes so you can burn your feet on the hot pavement, or maybe there's glass there. That's smart. Or all the other stupid things they do. And remember, it's going to be a mano a mano. Nobody's going to jump in. All the things that happen that all these teachers will not tell you. And that goes with everything. So no matter who you learn from in any subject matter, you've got to understand that you're pretty much going to have problems. Just like if you go out and try and learn a language and they give you what is universally considered the best way to learn, which is immersion, which goes back, like 70 years. But nobody teaches immersion that you pay for, unless you go to some dumbademy and you sit on a desk in front of a moron. Nobody learns that way. People learn from better methods that help you connect pictures and words together and everything else. So it's everywhere. So it's not just here, but McDojo, who wants to say he wants to keep things honest and wants to keep the field honest, he himself is not honest because he doesn't know how to do research. Figure out how to do research. Test these people directly yourself that make these claims, or go to a school that claims they teach this in wherever you're at. I think he's in some hillbilly southern place. But the whole idea is that go to a school that claims they can do this and have them demonstrate it to you and film it. I'm sure they would love to do it. If you go in there positively, if you go in there as the unamazing pervert, the complete lying sack of shit that the unamazing Randy was, well, nobody will want to deal with you. Go in there properly and give somebody the opportunity. I always tell people when I test them, I want to prove what you're doing is correct. I want to prove you can do it. I want to help you prove it to the world. That's how I go into everything. To go into their prejudice that this is nonsense, only a stooge does that, and you get nowhere. And you, of course, upset the people you're dealing with. Don't do that. That's ridiculous. Go in there being positive and wanting to help and see what you can do. But If they fail, they fail. You're not there to put up something fake to make them feel better. You're there to say, look, you failed. What are you going to do about that? What is it going to take for you not to fail? Plain and simple. So I hope this has been enlightening. These are all things that you have to understand out there. And the world is a minefield and a sewer. And everybody's throwing turds at you. Wake up and find and seek a gnosis.